for your time. Hope you're well. Can I ask you ahead of this match against Munster at the weekend how you assess where you are, particularly since over the last 2 weekends, a swashbuckling match against the Sharks and a bit of a dogfight against Connacht last weekend?
Yeah, no, obviously, we definitely take where we are in terms of the results that we've had. It's tough, as you know, to go and to win at home and have a short turnaround and go to Connacht and get a victory. So, full credit to Connacht. I thought they were excellent on the evening. So we were delighted to come away with a win, to be honest. These inter-provincial derbies are tough. They're tough to play in and tough to prepare for. With that also, you've got the integration of players, the changing team, so the stability in selection and cohesion that you get is often hard to achieve at Leinster sometimes because we constantly change the team to give people opportunities, and there's a lot of good players who've just come back from the Virgin Islands tour, the lads who've come back from injury, you've got lads pushing for places in November internationals, etc, etc. So, so to have that changing team and have some difficult home and away fixtures, we're pleased where we are, but all the form book and everything goes out the window when it comes to Munster at the Aviva.
And given the fact, given the way that they're playing with a new management team in the situation they're at, the way they had at the weekend, the fact you don't have a big sort of, don't have a lot to go on in terms of the way they're going. They've only had a couple of matches together. Are they kind of slightly less, or are they slightly more unpredictable, if you understand, in terms of trying to plan for them?
Yeah, well, I think they'll be pleased with the performance at the weekend. They beat a team that beat us in the semi-final last year, so they'll be pleased with that. And Dennis Leamy was here, and I know Dennis well. Obviously worked with him, particularly in the contact area in the defence role. So I can see what the influence he's doing. Mike Prendergast, obviously a very good job on the attack. You can see the improvements they're making there. And obviously, I know Graham very well, and his energy, his competitiveness, and his desire to want to build a winning team will make sure they're more than prepared. There's a lot of knowledge about Leinster, in the Munster camp, and that's what makes them very, very tricky opponents. And the rivalry between the provinces means that, as I said before, the form book goes out the window. And it's a proper derby.
I know you're not leaving until the end of the season, but are these the type of matches that you will miss, or would you be sort of happy that you have another problem to face?
No, I miss them massively. The top 14 is different. You've got 14 teams going at it. You've got some big games away in Toulouse or Toulon or wherever else. But nothing quite compares to the inter-provincial derbies, in my opinion. You get a little bit of that in England sometimes, when you've got Bath and Bristol, or the guys in the southwest playing against each other, some of the London teams against each other. But it's pretty unique in Ireland. I will miss them, and I want to enjoy them while I'm here for sure.
And just a final question, if you don't mind, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but the news has emerged this afternoon that Wasps have become the latest English team to go into administration. Do we have to be kind of careful the way the game takes off, if you understand what I mean? Certainly in terms of the United Rugby Championship, which is what we're considering at the moment, that we don't let it get too big too quickly, and people people try and hold on to their jobs and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the finances of the game are it's a tough environment to be in. The South African teams have been a good addition to the URC. Certainly the TV revenue that's been generated, the interest in the game has been generated. It's made it a very, very competitive league. But I don't think anyone, Leinster included, would be sat there, thinking that we've got all the answers covered in terms of the growth of the game. But if we can put performances like we did against the Sharks, 18,000 people at the RDS, hopefully. 35,000, 40,000 people for a club game at the Aviva this weekend. That's amazing, really, isn't it? When you consider, the sport in the country. So I think Ireland, in particular, the 4 provinces and the Union are in good shape. In England, it's very sad to see. Two clubs, and a lot of people who I know at both clubs both young and older players, and also, you know, a lot of the coaching staff as well. So yeah, it's tough. My son plays in England at the moment, and you know, I'm just grateful that he's got a job, you know, and an opportunity to progress as a rugby player.
That's great. Listen, thanks for your thoughts. See you at the weekend. Have a good week.
Stuart, if I can ask you, Justin Tracy Marty, if I can, just a quick word. Very bad news today for Ronan Kelleher and Will Connors, two long-term injuries confirmed. These are two players, young players, who just seem to have no luck at all.
Yeah, I think Ronan's probably different. I think he's closer to. It's not quite as grave as you described, to be honest. So he's he's going to get back, but Will's been particularly unlucky, really. You know, with the injury that he has, so that you know, he takes one step forward and unfortunately he gets an injury and has to take one step back. But the good thing about Will is he's got an incredibly positive mindset and incredibly optimistic, and the form he showed in the pre-season and certainly in the start of the season means that once he gets over this bicep injury, he'll be back soon enough. You know, and he's got a long, you know, he's got the Christmas period and plus the whole of 6 months at the second half of the season to aim for, including, you know, the Six Nations and hopefully a World Cup squad to aim for. So it's still all ahead of both of them for sure.
Just on a more general term, on how the team and the squad is playing at the moment, are you kind of 5 rounds in happy with where you're at?
Yeah. You know, we've had difficult games to play, particularly, you know, in difficult conditions as well. Particularly the inter-provincial games, you know, up in Ulster and over at Connacht. So you know, to get 2 wins away from home in those games was really pleasing. Obviously, you know, we've not been 10 out of 10 in terms of quality of performance in every game, but I don't think anyone is at the start of the season. So yeah, we're okay. We're pleased. As I said before, it's hard sometimes when you're constantly changing the team and you're rotating players in and giving people opportunities to get the cohesion that you want. But I think we've managed the squad well. Leo's created great opportunities for players. All roads lead to the Aviva on Saturday. There's going to be an Ireland squad announced. They'll leave and go into camp. We'll play the Scarlets. And then we get a bit of a break. So, you know, the goal is to keep doing what we're doing.
Great. Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks.
Stuart, it's Don here. You trained on a G4 last week, and you played on a G4 last week. Does it suit Leinster's style of play, or do you have a view on G4s?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, most of the grass pitches are pretty good now anyway, to be honest. So it's less about the survey, it's more about the wind and the rain. Like, can we not get like a big cover for some time for about when it yeah, that's the more deciding factor, really. You know, it was a beautiful day in Galway until about 5 minutes before kickoff, and then started blowing a gale and raining. So so the surface is pretty good. I mean, personally for me, I prefer the fast surfaces. You know, we want to play a high tempo game. So whether that's a decent pitch like the Aviva, or good pitch like the Aviva, or a 4G, then you know, either one suits me.
Okay, thanks.
Sure, Will here from Virgin Media Sports. Just wanted to ask you about Munster and obviously a regime change. What differences have you seen in their play from this year to last year?
There's familiar themes in that they're very, very good at the set piece, very good in what we call battles, so close to the opposition try line. They're very, very effective there. They always have been, and they still are. You saw that in the Bulls game. You know, Dennis obviously came from here. You know, you look at, I can see the work he's doing in defence. So we'd have a similar type of system, and you know, you can see the sort of shape and phase shapes that they're running, which again would be reasonably similar to ourselves. So yeah, I think they'll be really pleased with their performance at the weekend. I thought it was a really good performance again, as I said, against the team that beat us in the semi-final and beat them fair and square. So, you know, they'll be confident now on the back of that, and rightly so. And you know, it'll all come to a head at the Aviva at the weekend. And I think, you know, when I look at their team and the young players they've got coming through, and they blood in them now and get them the experience. and you put them alongside the more senior players they've got in the group, they've got a good mix, you know. And I know Graham will be working them hard, and he'll definitely have them motivated for this weekend. So it's a big game for us.
Just touching on that with Graham, you said you know him quite well. Do you expect him as the sort of guy to spring a few surprises on you?
Yeah. No, I'm sure there'll be plans there. You know, both sides would probably go down the same route, but also there's a lot of knowledge that everyone has of each other. You know, the little lads are in Ireland camp together. You know, Conor Murray's, Peter Marnie's, Ty Burns. You know, they know each other pretty well. So there shouldn't be too many surprises, but I guarantee there'll be one or two. So we need to be ready.
Thanks, Stuart.
Hi, Stuart. Just wondering in relation to the change format with the URC and the South African teams coming in, the intensity of the games week in, week out, including the Inter-pros, and the injury situation. Do you think there's, because of the intensity of games, do you think there's a bigger issue in handling injuries and squad rotation?
Yeah, we picked up a few in the Sharks game for sure, and obviously one or two in the Connacht game. I think they are part and parcel of any season really. I wouldn't say I've noticed a discernible shift in any direction, but you know, there's no doubt the South African teams have brought an increased level of physicality and intensity, which is probably needed in the competition anyway. And you know, someone said to me the other day, you know, do you think you know it's a good competition? I said it's a brilliant competition because 1 week you're playing against the South African team who defend a certain way and attack a certain way. The next week you're playing an Inter-provincial game. The next week you're playing a Welsh team. Then you're playing an Italian team. Then you're playing a Scotland. And they're all different. You know, they all have like their own national identities gravitate down to their team's identity. So as a coach, you're constantly challenged to come up with different ways of playing against different teams. So, but I certainly think the South Africans have been good for the competition, but also in light of Ireland playing South Africa first up in November, you know, it's good experience for lads to play against, you know, those South African teams, because when we first started, you know, there's only the Cheetahs and the Kings really. And you know, there's a big difference, with all due respect to them, to the teams that are being put out at the moment. If you look at the Sharks at the weekend, the team or the bench they had that came on against Glasgow was virtually all internationals.